Hello and welcome to the semi-finals of GP Toronto here in Canada. I'm Tim Willoughby, joined with Hall of Famer Randy Buehler, and we can see the players are just about ready to go. On the left of our screen, that's John Stern. He's going to get to go first in this as he finished third in the Swifts. He's playing white-green tokens. On the other side of things, Oliver Tu from America. He finished 7th in the Swiss, and with Grixis control, he may have a slightly tricky matchup here, as we've heard that white-green tokens typically favored here. We'll be able to find out soon enough, though, as these players kick things off here. Canopy Vista there for John Stern. Nothing on turn 1, but that's not really what this white-green tokens deck's all about. It gradually gets lots of creatures in play, but turn 1 is not like the sort of the white weenie decks that are desperately trying to beat down from the very, very start. So the second turn here. It looks like we've got a lot of checklist cards in John Stern's deck. That one.
Lambholt Pacifist.
Now, Lambholt Pacifist, a 3/3 naturally. It's not going to be able to attack until there's a creature with power 4 or greater in play. Oliver Tu, keen not to have the werewolf flip, though, and plays a Transgress the Mind, seeing Nissa, Ally of Zendikar, Nissa down there removed, and Secure the Waste alongside a Sylvan Advocate, the only spells in John Stern's hand. Neither of them is going to make the Lambholt Pacifist big anytime soon, but I guess that with Secure the Waste, he could just pass without making a play, flip his werewolf, and then still be able to get creatures on the board.
Well, Thraben Inspector makes the Sylvan Advocate line too attractive to pass up, though.
Yeah, he gets
2-drop and a 1-drop, and he'll build up more lands for Secure later.
And the Clue at some point may prove relevant as well. Oliver Tu's deck ultimately trying to get card advantage wherever it can.
True.
So when your opponent is just casually drawing extra cards without any huge cost, a little bit problematic. Also problematic for Oliver here, he's not drawn any blue sources yet. He's effectively a red-black deck for now.
Yeah, that is the splash color. I mean, we call this Grixis control, but it's really black-red control, splashing for 4 copies of Jace Vryn's Prodigy, 2 copies of Dragonlord Silumgar. That is the extent of the blue splash. And I don't think I see any of those cards in his hand, so you're right that he's got no blue mana, but I don't think it's actually really impacting his game right here.
So Kolaghan's Command shuffled to the front of Oliver Tu's hand here, potentially able to get rid of one of the creatures on the other side of the board. He's also got a couple of copies of Ultimate Price and some Kalitas in his hand. I guess that there's a temptation to try and hang back on removal a little bit and until he can play a Kalitas. But here, using the mode of Kolaghan's Command to destroy the Clue, and we'll find out what the extra mode was soon enough. It looks like John Stern might be being forced to think about what to discard here. And discard Secure the Waste. So Oliver Tu now working with all the information on what John Stern has going on. Three points of damage coming in here for John Stern. He's not yet found any of his ways of pumping things, but Gideon Ally of Zendikar off the top there, immediately bringing with it a Knight Ally token. So this is why we call it white-green tokens. It's not just the straightforward creatures there. Immediately a Ruinous Path from Oliver Tu. He does not want to let that Gideon hang around for too long. It does not take long with churning out tokens for the white-green deck to really get ahead in this game.
Now, the lack of blue mana isn't hurting Oliver too much, but the lack of a 4th mana definitely is. Kalitas has some ability to stabilize this board. Okay, there's the 4th mana, and Kalitas does come down now. The lifelink is relevant, the body is relevant, the ability to get zombies as Oliver sort of churns through his removal spells, all relevant.
And John Stern already now living off the top of his deck, so in some respects, the early part of the game kind of going the way that Oliver Tu wants in terms of he's been able to trade 1-for-1 fairly successfully and even get a little 2-for-1 with his, or 2 for maybe 1.5 with his Kolaghan's Command. What he needs to do now is worry about his life total.
Right.
He can't really afford to be blocking here. Takes an extra hit there from the werewolf on John Stern's side of this board.
See an ultimate price, though. Ultimate price to kill the butcher and make a zombie suddenly stabilizes the board.
Or indeed, 2 ultimate price in order to kill off a couple of creatures, flip the werewolf back, and then there's not really any good attacks for John Stern. Lots of nice options here for Oliver Tu. The one thing he doesn't have to work with right now is a huge amount of life. Yeah, read the bones in his hand there.
Tempting.
Yeah, tempting, but
he's got the 5th land. He can read the bones and ultimate price. 6th land from John, though, suddenly makes Sylvan Advocate big enough that there's 2 large creatures attacking him. It's a tricky spot.
And I guess Read the Bones plus Ultimate Price now at least transforms that werewolf back.
That's a good point. Yeah, I like that line. thinking about an attack with Kalitas. Thinking about it.
I mean, I guess if the attack prompts a double block, then he has the potential for the big blowout, kill off one of the blockers.
Yeah, John's not going to do that, though. I like Read the Bones and Ultimate Price to flip Butcher back into Pacifist, and now Kalitas as a 3/4 potential blocker can hold it off. Like, I don't think John has an attack if his Sylvan Advocate dies and his Butcher gets flipped back to a Pacifist. Fowler's going to play 2 Ultimate Prices, though. Maybe this attack works out.
And he is going to be potentially getting some zombies off
Right.
off the ultimate prices. I guess that what he's worrying about a little bit is there's 5 mana untapped and there's 1 card in John Stern's hand. That could potentially mean some very scary things on the other
True.
side of the board.
Yeah, Ultimate Price certainly gives him some insurance against Avacyn.
Full 4 copies of
But-
Archangel Avacyn in there.
Yeah, the triple block would kill Kalitas.
Well, it looks
Oh, I
like
guess he's hoping that John is going to summon Avacyn and go for a gang block. Oliver can use both Ultimate Prices to kill the Avacyn and the Advocate. So yeah, this is not all that scary.
I mean, he would
It is Avacyn.
So the
Wow.
trigger will resolve before John Stern declares who his blockers are. So
Right. So indestructibility trigger on the stack. Oliver's going to respond to that with an Ultimate Price on Avacyn. And I'm guessing he's also going to Ultimate Price the Sylvan Advocate, because if he doesn't, then Kalitas is going to die in combat. Yep. There you go.
and here's a whole bunch of zombies for my trouble.
And Kalitas is still going to get in an attack, and Oliver's going to gain 3 life from the lifelink ability.
Yeah, so we saw Oliver too kind of in the tank a little bit about trying how to work out how to play that turn. Ultimately, I'm sure that he figured out that one of the options for John Stern was going to be the Kalitas. There's not that many cards that John was going to keep in his hand at that point.
Yeah.
And that worked out just great for the American.
Super well solved by Oliver. He knew exactly what was going to happen there.
And now we look at the board for John Stern, and none of the cards that he has in play are particularly high impact here.
The 2/2 attacks, sure. Trade for a zombie. Simple enough,
Goes for the double block.
just to make sure.
Now, when the tokens go to the graveyard, that's the one type of creature that Kalitas is not making more zombies with. Possibly, like if he would attack with, say, any of the other creatures, and they'd then been killed, it would have effectively been a free block for Oliver too. He would have just got more zombies back, even if some of his zombies died in the blocking. And now Oliver too has enough life that he feels safe to read the bones.
Ruinous Path and Duress. Duress is definitely going to the bottom.
Oliver actually kind of described this deck as read the bones being his win condition. Gradually, he's getting card advantage, and that's how he wins.
I didn't know it was possible to like him even more, but now I do.
So Fiery Impulse very definitely having Spell Mastery here. Spell Mastery not difficult to achieve for the Grixis control deck.
Sure, get in there. You want to double block John Stern? I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, even just on the board, there's the threat of sacrificing a zombie to become a little bit larger.
Isn't that 4 mana to activate? What's the activation cost on that
I believe
ability?
it's 2 and a black.
Fair enough.
Oliver 2 just splaying out his graveyard there. Yeah, Spell Mastery, that's a thing for me. And a Ruinous Path there on the Sylvan Advocate before it can end up being even larger. John Stern taking his first damage of the game there. And passing to, well, we don't know at this point whether or not he passed simply in order to transform his werewolf, or if there were in fact a few ulterior motives involving a certain mythic angel. But we will find out soon enough. Kalitas now, well, is he going to rumble in? There's definitely a temptation to, especially with a backup copy in Oliver 2's hand.
Yeah, Oliver doesn't have a specific answer to Avacyn, but he can eat a zombie to survive a combat. I guess he can eat both zombies. 4, 5, 9. Yeah, he could, in theory, get his Kalitas killed. Is he going to just decline to attack here? It's one card off the top of the deck, but Oliver feels like he's in such control he doesn't want to risk Avacyn.
Well, secure the waste is what it in fact was. So here we see 4 soldiers getting made, warriors getting made at the end of turn, making sure we pull out the right tokens there. And John Stern now looking to go wide. I guess his best draw here would be a Nissa to pump his team. We'll find out soon enough if that one is what he found on the top of his deck, because there's not really a huge amount of reason to hold on to that one with this sort of a board. Just passes things back. He's already seen what happens if he passes with a board even emptier than this. We'll find out soon enough whether Oliver 2's play gets changed a little by his draw. So this end of turn Evolving Wilds potentially setting up the blue mana that at some point he may need. In the meantime, I think he's probably having a look through his deck just to figure out what he wants to be doing over the next few turns, what he's already played, what he can potentially draw for future turns.
Marsha was speculating earlier as to whether we've ever had a Rookie of the Year get all the way to Platinum.
Yeah, it's something that if it has happened, it's certainly not happened very often.
I know the answer now.
Oh, yeah?
It's happened once.
Who was that one then?
Alexander Hayne.
Ah, yeah, our champion at Pro Tour Valencia. Innistrad block constructed, Miracles getting there for the Canadian.
Now, to be fair, the Rookie of the Year award has been around longer than Platinum has.
This is true. I guess, technically speaking, had Platinum been around at the point that you were playing on the Pro Tour, you would have won that because you did win your first Pro Tour.
I did. Yeah, I finished second in the Player of the Year race, which I think is the highest the Rookie of the Year has done.
So Oliver 2 having a good old look around here as he activates his Evolving Wilds. Looks like ultimately he is just pulling out that island.
It's interesting to watch him think here. This is not entirely normal behavior, you know?
And stepping away from the table here just to check something
What is he asking about?
with a judge. We might see if we can find out what's
Is he
happening here.
mis-sideboarded or something? I wonder if he discovered a sideboard flaw. Like
Possible.
what would I mean, I had the same read that you did where he was just trying to decide how does he want to play this board? Does he want to be aggressive with Kalitas? Does he not?
He saw a duress,
Oh,
and he realized that he has 4 duress in his sideboard.
Oh, that's
When he looked at his
He's
deck,
mis-sideboarded.
he realized that duress on the bottom of his deck that he put on the bottom with Read the Bones, he thinks, wait, that's a card from my sideboard.
Yep, that's what it is. It doesn't sound like he de-sideboarded at all from the quarterfinals. It's the word we're getting from the floor.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly makes sense. I mean, normally, he didn't have that many targets for his Evolving Wilds, but he has now realized that that's the situation. I presume here stepping away to let the judges know that he has identified that there is this problem. At this point, John Stern, I'm very intrigued as to what he thinks is going on here. Typically, there's not that much that can happen with a relatively straightforward Evolving Wilds activation. And a tough moment for Oliver 2 in this top 8.
Yeah. He's winning this game, too.
Yeah, he's certainly favored at this point in this game.
I mean, Secure the Waste kind of stabilized the board, but Oliver's deck is just, I feel like, much better at closing from here. Like, he could get aggressive with the Kalitas, too, as long as he doesn't run into something like an indestructibility turn from an Avacyn. He can trade it for a couple of creatures and then replay his other Kalitas, but...
Yeah, this one way of taking a winning position and turning it into a losing one, unfortunate to see here in our top 8. Looks like John Stern stepping away from the table for a second, perhaps having this explained to him by the judge. We'll find out in just a moment what the final resolution is on this sort of a judge call.
Yep. Yeah, I guess the interesting question, he did see that duress earlier with the Read the Bones.
He did, yes.
And so they played on from a point where he saw a sideboard card. I think that's what the conversation is about right now.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, it's definitely a tricky situation. Duress, not even a good card for him in this matchup. There was certainly no advantage to be gained, I wouldn't imagine. But ultimately, that's not the way that these things tend to get ruled. It's not so much on intent as simply the fact that this is a game rule violation of some description. I'm sure the judges will be able to fix it one way or another, though. It looks like one of our judges is in the area now, just sort of sorting things out with these players. And we'll get an update from the floor on the exact details of how that resolution goes.
Do we have another match we can watch if this is going to take a while? Sounds like we do not have another match we can watch.
Yeah, it looks like the other quarterfinals, there's some shuffling going on, so I presume that there has been at least one game completed there between Robert Lombardi and Doug Potter.
They scoop up the cards. I assume that was a game loss for Oliver. We'll see if that's all it was.
Yeah, between Robert Lombardi and Doug Potter here. Robert Lombardi's Esper Dragons up a game against white-green tokens, and if we're working on the assumption that in abstract, white-green tokens good against control, that doesn't appear to be playing out quite in this top four. Each of these players, you can see them there looking at deck lists.
Now, technically, John Stern just won that game. It does sound like it is a game loss. Oliver Tew gets a game loss, and I think they're just moving on with that ruling. But yeah, you make a good point. Robert Lombardi's Esper Dragons has defeated white-green tokens, and Oliver Tew's Grixis Control had played the game to a favorable position against John Stern's green-white tokens.
I mean, I guess that Lombardi is able to cast Languish. He is able to potentially just sort of make the efforts of the tokens deck a little in vain.
I don't think sweepers are the answer, though. Like, sweepers are good when people invest whole cards in creatures. When people invest, a Planeswalker activation and another Planeswalker activation in getting their creatures into play, Languish just is bad. I don't think Languish is... I mean, look, it's not useless. Sometimes you do just want to sort of slow them down and buy yourself time to get your control plan in place. But I don't think Languish specifically is actively good in this matchup.
I mean, one similarity that both Robert Lombardi's list and the list of Oliver Tew have is 2 copies of Dragonlord Silumgar. It may well be that there's small edges that need to be used.
Yeah, I think you
ahead.
need to be able to deal with the Planeswalkers. I think that's how you beat white-green tokens. You have to survive their ability to potentially curve out, and then you need to deal with their Planeswalkers.
Yeah, I mean, Oliver Tew has multiple copies of Ruinous Path, which do let you deal with Planeswalkers fairly happily. Don't actually see them in the list of Robert Lombardi, his Esper Dragons list, at least in the main deck. In the sideboard, though, for Robert Lombardi, a couple of copies of Virulent Plague, which those will be a big deal against the tokens deck.
I'm surprised we haven't seen more Virulent Plague. Maybe we will moving forward. The biggest problem with Virulent Plague is the presence of Dromoka's Command in all the tokens lists. Like, they just come sort of pre-sideboarded with 4 enchantment removal spells. So it's almost like you need some other enchantment to defend your Virulent Plague with.
And even then, I mean, there is the option that after sideboarding they may have Tragic Arrogance if they so choose. I mean, it seems a little bit heavy-handed way of dealing with that particular board state, but we'll find out soon enough how Game 2 goes here between Robert Lombardi and Doug Potter. Doug Potter looking to potentially do the double here at GP Toronto.
Right. He is qualified for the Sunday Super Series final, which the way the Sunday Super Series is working is there's 8 different tournaments, each of which qualify one person for that final draft. And so he won a tournament on Friday to get himself one of the 8 seats in that Sunday Super Series final draft, which was initially scheduled to happen more or less now, but the sealed deck qualifier is still going on. They still have a round left.
Yeah, that started at 11, and it hit the full 128 player cap.
Oh,
so
wow.
It was always going to be a long tournament. They were looking that it might be done in time to kick things off for the draft around 7. It looks like it might be a little later than that, though.
Yeah.
Not something that Doug Potter's going to mind too much about.
No, he's like, take your time. Give me. I'm busy. I'll be ready in, give me an hour, maybe 90 minutes.
Ideally, more like 2.
Yeah, sure.
So Hangerback Walker, the early play here for Doug Potter, followed up by a Sylvan Advocate. Hangerback Walker, one of the nicer ones against the decks that are using straight 1-for-1 removal Declaration in Stone was always the big worry for Hangerback Walker in this standard environment, but it looks like in this top 8, actually been able to dodge the declarations, at least for now.
I got more details on the judge ruling in the Oliver 2 match, by the way. It sounds like a spectator had noticed the duress getting scried to the bottom of Oliver's deck on that Read the Bones, and had gone to alert the judge that there was a sideboard card in Oliver's deck. But by the time the judges got there to look into it, Tew had pointed out the duress himself while searching with the Evolving Wilds. So the head judge was confident that Tew didn't register that the duress was a sideboard card when scrying it to the bottom, issued the standard penalty for accidentally not de-sideboarding, which is a game loss.
Yeah, I mean, important anytime you do realize that there is issues, even with your own deck, it's better to call a judge and say, look, I screwed up.
If
I'll
the
take
judge
the penalty.
believes that you knew you forgot to de-sideboard but didn't tell anybody, now you're cheating. Now you get
that's
kicked
a
out
big
of the
problem.
tournament. But, I mean, ultimately, that's a judgment call. It comes down to the judge's ability to assess your intention. And here, the fact that Oliver called it on himself demonstrates that, he was not intentionally doing anything.
Well, we've seen Kalitas doing big things in against white-green tokens already this semi-finals. Robert Lombardi's the one with it in play here. Use it to attack Nissa there, the voice of Zendikar.
And obviously, there's no advantage to be gained by having a sideboard card in Game 1 when lists are public. So there's certainly no hint of that. It's really just a question of whether he parsed that he had a sideboard card when he scribed the duress to the bottom.
Grasp of Darkness there, offering Hangerback Walker. And conveniently with Kalitas in play, that works out
No tokens.
a great deal better than otherwise. One token, that being a zombie for Robert Lombardi. Of course, Doug Potter has his own way of making extra tokens there with Nissa in play, making a plant token and a mystery morph coming down for Doug Potter. I wonder what that could possibly be in this matchup. Not a huge amount of morphs that need to be worried about in Standard right now. Den Protector, the one that it seems likely to be looking at these lists. And at the moment, Sylvan Advocate probably the best target in the graveyard simply because there's already a Nissa in play, but we'll see how long that lasts. Duress reveals a Secure the Waste and another Den Protector, but a few more targets for the first one now, I guess. Secure the Waste, of course, pairing up quite nicely with Nissa's minus ability, enabling a lot of warrior tokens to get pumped. Robert Lombardi doesn't like that plan too much, starts attacking Nissa down wherever he can. And does Robert have his 5th land for the turn? We'll find out soon enough. He's taking a point off his Caves of Kolos and then a further 3 from Painful Truths, but he's drawing 3 cards for his trouble. Finds Dragonlord Silumgar, that 5th land, and a Dark Petition. Megamorph from Den Protector there. Doug Potter just figuring out what it is he wants to bring back. And with 5 lands in play, I guess that's Sylvan Advocate looking pretty tempting. It looks like that is what he's going for. If the 6th land's in his hand or indeed on the top of his deck, then Sylvan Advocate will come into play large enough to be able to survive the likes of Languish or indeed Grasp of Darkness.
No 6th land.
Another plant token coming along here for Doug Potter. Nissa doing a good job of protecting herself, and another morph before an attack from this first Den Protector. A 3-2 thanks to the Megamorph +1/+1 counter. No blocks, of course, from Robert Lombardi. Drops to 16.
Yeah, I think Doug would vastly prefer to wait until he's got 6 lands to play Sylvan Advocate. Den Protector also uses his mana pretty efficiently this turn.
Yeah, Den Protector, it's got a lot of modes when it comes to efficiently using your mana. Not bad as a 2-drop, pretty good as a 3-drop, great as a 5-drop. Robert Lombardi here with a huge amount of options in his hand, as much as anything because he does have a Dark Petition to work with, so effectively every card in his deck kind of live. Goes for a big swing here. Kalitas getting stuck in every turn, but not really able to get a huge amount of traction as long as there's a forest of plants to cut through.
Yeah, I mean, Robert's chipping away at Nissa. He's gaining some life.
And he's in a similar position to how we saw Oliver 2 in the last game, that he's gradually reaching a point where Doug Potter is running out of cards in hand while he is merrily keeping his hand well and truly stocked. The difference here that Doug Potter, with those Den Protectors, is able to get some kind of card advantage going over and above just getting lots of permanents in play with Planeswalkers.
Mm-hmm.
Infinite Obliteration in hand here for Robert Lombardi. That kind of an interesting one. Able to potentially remove a creature from the game entirely, but first up, a Transgress the Mind to see what's in hand. And that, a swing and a miss there. Hangerback Walker, converted mana cost in hand 0, not high enough for a Transgress the Mind, but now Robert Lombardi working with full information. And I guess Infinite Obliteration gets a little bit better when you know that you can name one of the creatures that's in your opponent's hand and definitely get a kind of more immediate impact on the board position. Takes a point from his Kaiser Kurlos, casts it here, and I'm guessing we're fairly quickly going to be able to figure out what it is that he's named, because I'd be quite surprised if he didn't name something that was at least in Doug Potter's hand here. Okay. Well, I mean, if you're looking for a high-impact creature to not have to worry about, it's hard to argue with Archangel Avacyn. All 4 copies getting exiled.
Rob, I'm going to take a look at how Doug is sideboarded while he's at it.
Yeah, the amount of information Robert Lombardi working with now, almost complete. In principle, he doesn't know what that morph is. In practice,
Yeah,
he's got the deck
with
list.
a duress a couple turns ago.
And with that, I think having to pass it back, doesn't have any more lands to play. Second Den Protector flipped. And backup Nissa deployed. Now these Den Protectors, they do a little bit of extra work in green-white tokens to perhaps how they have done in various other decks over time, because comparatively straightforward to get extra counters on those Den Protectors, and they do become quite tricky to block at some point.
Yeah, and here you see Nissa giving her life for the team. A replacement Nissa is coming, of course.
And
That one
immediately,
goes down.
so now we have
10.
10 damage coming in from Den Protectors, and that Sylvan Advocate also colossal now with 6 lands in play.
Yep.
Naturally a 2/3, 4/3 thanks to all there being 6 lands in play. 4/5. Now 6/7 Vigilance thanks to the 2 extra +1/+1 counters. Robert Lombardi facing quite the clock here.
It's been a really well played game by Doug Potter, actually.
Absolutely. I mean, when you see a control deck with this many cards in hand, your natural inclination is, well, the control deck's doing pretty well here. The board seemed comparatively stable even a turn or two ago, but running Nissas and Den Protectors seem to be doing great work here for Doug Potter.
Yeah, and then Robert spending that whole turn on an Infinite Obliteration. I mean, that's one of the problems. The card's powerful, especially in certain matchups, but it has no impact on the board. If it had just been any removal spell, suddenly Robert would be up a zombie and Doug would be down a creature.
And it looks like that we got some removal spells coming this turn. At very least, an Ultimate Price has been shuffled to the front of Robert Lombardi's hand here.
Is one removal spell good enough now? It's like 2 removal spells and Robert's in great shape. 1 and it's still pretty close.
I mean, as things stand, to even block one of those Den Protectors, he would need Kalitas to start eating zombie friends.
Right.
Nice to have the option, of course. There would be many boards where simply blocking Den Protector would not be realistic whatsoever. Oh, we may see a Dark Petition here.
Hmm.
If there was a 6th land, then it would be a tiny bit easier. But no, Ultimate Price takes down Sylvan Advocate. There's another zombie.
Okay, this lets him kill Nissa.
And eating a zombie means that, yes, he's going to gain extra life from Kalitas, who is now just a touch larger, and in future turns will be able to block Den Protectors.
He gains to what, 13? Okay, so Gideon Emblem's not quite lethal, Nissa's not quite lethal. But this attack does drop him to 3.
3 lethal threats on the board, and if that Hangerback Walker gets killed with Kalitas not on the board, it creates a whole bunch of flyers. Conveniently, of course, with Kalitas around,
Yeah.
death triggers don't work out quite so well for Doug Potter. Robert Lombardi, a game up in this set of semi-finals, but has to be fairly careful in these next couple of turns.
Kalitas can attack for 5 life, which is not good enough. Eating a zombie, making it 7 life, still not good enough. Needs to kill a Den Protector. We can kill both Den Protectors. I love his chances.
And there is the potential for a Dark Petition here to fetch a removal spell.
Sure. I mean, pretty much every removal spell in his deck works, right?
Yeah, especially with Kalitas on the board so that he's not having to worry about death triggers on Hangerback Walkers and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, if he had a land that came into play untapped, he could Dark Petition for Languish and Languish, which would be kind of insane on this board. Kalitas survives. None of Doug's creatures do.
Yeah, the Den Protectors, as much as they're much larger than they normally tend to be, still not large enough to survive -4/-4, but a big Sylvan Advocate there, and that's one will survive a Languish.
Yeah, Kalitas does hold off Den Protectors. Like, he can block. It's big enough now to be able to block those 5-power Den Protectors.
And Shambling Vent untapping now might do something. It looks like Dragonlord Silumgar in hand alongside a Dragonlord Ojutai for Robert Lombardi, so
Interesting.
here come the
Silumgar,
dragons.
Steals Den Protector.
Yeah, that Den Protector will happily trade with any of the creatures that Doug Potter has on the other side of the board. Eight toughness on the back end of that Kalitas, 7-8 in total, means that if Doug Potter does want to kill Kalitas off, he's going to have to go some.
He can kill it, though.
I guess Robert here just thinking the life is really important to me right now.
Hangerback can even grow, right?
This is true.
So Kalitas can only kill one of those creatures.
Robert Lombardi getting 7, going up to 10 here, a little bit safer.
Yeah, this makes it so one Dromoka's command doesn't clear a path for Den Protector and just kill him.
Couple of copies of Dragonlord Ojutai in hand now for Robert Lombardi, alongside a whole host of spells, including a Virulent Plague that at the moment is kind of better for Doug Potter than it is for him. Just the one lone token in play. And now we start to see the big swings from the Esper Dragons list. Ojutai flying in, Den Protector skulking through. Is that the right term for? I guess it's kind of reverse skulk, right?
Sure.
As things stand, Doug Potter able to block with either of his creatures, chooses not to. And there's Nissa. We have not seen any counter magic apart from perhaps at the very start of this game from Robert Lombardi. Interesting that a lot of the control decks now, it's more about controlling the board than it is controlling the spells that get cast.
True.
Wow.
Silumgar's command.
So Silumgar's command here, countering a non-creature spell, and by the looks of it, giving -3/-3 to that Den Protector, and that enough for the handshake from Doug Potter.
Wow.
Big smiles from Robert Lombardi. Doug, I'm sure that he's not going to be too sad. He gets a little bit of a moment to catch his breath before going off to the next tournament that he finds himself in the top 8 of.
Sure.
So we are going to have an Esper Dragons deck in our final.
Crazy.
Congratulations there to Robert Lombardi. And meanwhile, Oliver too has found a way of squaring things up against his opponent, John Stern. We saw him pick up a game loss for failure to D-sideboard in game 1, but winning it fair and square game 2 against John Stern, and we are just about ready. They're shuffling up prior to this, the deciding game that will determine who our finalist is, facing off against Esper Dragons here at Grand Prix Toronto. You can see there the face-to-face game sleeves of John Stern. Face-to-face games, they have been hosting this this GP, and quite the GP it's been. A huge turnout, the biggest constructed GP here in Canada that ever there has been. I'm sure that we'll find ourselves making our way up here many times again.
Timing worked out perfect.
Synchronized magic. I love it when it happens. It's like that moment where you leave the table at a restaurant for a moment, you come back and your food's just arrived. Fantastic feeling. Deck list just being tucked away here as they go into this final game. And it looks like I see a Dragon Master Outcast in Oliver 2's opening hand. That kind of a cool card in this matchup where there's not so much removal that it means that if you can stick it, if they don't kill it immediately, suddenly you're making dragons, and it doesn't take very long for the dragons to end things. But Oliver 2 shipping back his hand, presumably not quite the right mix of lands and spells that he was looking for in this pretty important game. John Stern sitting there stoically watching as Oliver 2 shuffles. One of the players on the tour that I would say the hardest to get a read on how he's feeling on any given game or sort of any given board state. Keeps his cards pretty close to his chest. He's been around for a while. He knows what's going on. He's not going to leak any information that sort of way.
See how these 6 are.
Well, a couple of swamps, Kalitas, yeah, 3
Land
lands.
and Kalitas came off the top first. I don't care what the other 3 are.
Dragon Master Outcast. He's got a duress now.
Yeah. Third land. Blue mana.
4th land, in fact. So he's got all of his different colors. Has an early duress. Gets to snag a Planeswalker early on. Sees both Gideon and Nissa there. A couple of copies of Nissa, in fact. Along with the Westvale Abbey. Interesting hand, this one.
Wow. It's just land and Planeswalkers. I think you take Gideon, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny old one. Anytime you see 2 of the same card, there's kind of a temptation to take the odd man out, if you will.
Yeah, especially when they're Planeswalkers. You can't use both of them effectively.
And I'm sure that Oliver taking careful note of what he saw there so that he can figure out whether or not the card that gets played next is one that came off the top. An extra Canopy Vista No big surprises there, but a
Right
turn
on
2
schedule.
Jace. Oliver 2 does not mind taking a point of pain for that one. Jace Vryn's Prodigy, that will smooth out his draws in good fashion, and he already knows that John Stern's hand not holding any removal. It's going to take something off the top to deal with Jace here. We'll find out in a moment if John has it. For now, even if he does, chooses not to give away any information. Casts his Nissa in hand, or the first Nissa in hand, should I say, makes a plant token. And Oliver 2, quick to loot, finds Silumgar's command. We saw that one working to good effect in the last match for Robert Lombardi.
Oliver's got to figure out how he wants to sculpt these next couple of turns. How important is Dragon Master Outcast? It's not relevant for a while.
I mean, even if it ends up going to the graveyard, Kolaghan's command can potentially get it back at some point.
True.
Once he has lots of lands in play. As
But
a
he's-
1/1, it has very low impact until you have
Right.
those extra lands.
Yeah, I think I like the Outcast as the discard. He's not holding a Kolaghan's command, but we get a lot of turns before he would want to get it back.
Yeah, keeping the Outcast and discarding lands seems like a good way of not getting enough lands for your Dragon Master Outcast. Well, John Stern hitting his land drops, that much we knew he was going to be able to do. The big question is how much more he's going to be able to get going. Early on, we saw that he only had Planeswalkers and had Gideon taken away by an early duress. Is this a matchup where we may see John ticking up to try for his ultimates on Nissa? We saw it earlier on in the Swiss.
Sure. Dragonlord Silumgar, another expensive card for Oliver.
And at some point, Oliver does have the option of kind of getting card advantage with Silumgar's command, destroy target Planeswalker, and do something else.
Yep. So 4 mana, he knows he's going to play Kalitas. He's going to wait for more information about what John's going to do on turn 5 before he activates Jace. Avacyn now a thing that John Stern can do.
Okay, so
Nissa goes down.
the plants get watered, they grow a little bit.
He found Dromoka's command.
Yeah, this will be enough to deal with Jace. +1/+1 and a fight. Oliver activates Jace in response.
Finds a new one.
That's the way to do it. Turns out that we've hit the point in the game where Jace isn't as important as the other cards in Oliver 2's hand. That a bit of a worry for John Stern, one must assume.
Ooh, Declaration in Stone on Kalitas. Very good news for John Stern.
And a little cheeky hit in there for 3.
Oliver draws Evolving Wilds.
He did already have a 5th land that comes into play tapped, so if he wants to be casting his Silumgar's command, he can potentially do so next turn. Or, yeah, this turn seems unlikely. I think that he would like at least to have the option of using it as negate plus something rather than...
Well, yeah, I mean, the interesting
Bolt, right.
question is whether he wants... He has a swamp, so he's an untapped land. He could potentially play that next turn for 6. So did he want Silumgar's command this turn, or did he want Silumgar himself next turn?
so
Decides, by cracking the clue, he basically decided he was going to play, comes in and play tap land now. The clue was nice enough to give him a duress for that second Nissa.
Looks like that may have been another Declaration in Stone drawn there for John Stern.
Oh, that's interesting. Is Oliver on just Swamp and Silumgar now? Oh, Swamp, Silumgar, and Silumgar's command.
John getting in the easy damage there. As Nissa's garden grows. And after game one, I'm sure that Oliver's Evolving Wilds, some of the scariest Evolving Wilds around. At this point, it's hard to say that you've mis-sideboarded, though, and have that be a problem in terms of the rules, but you still don't want to have mis-sideboarded and just find a card that you just didn't want to have in your deck at this point. Kalitas the draw. But Dragonlord Silumgar the play. Of the permanents that John Stern has in play, one the most exciting target there. Immediately Nissa ticks up, makes a plant for Oliver too.
Yeah, there's not a lot of removal in John Stern's deck. So Oliver's probably hoping this is going to work out. What he doesn't know is that John just top deck Declaration in Stone.
I believe that was the card which he drew. It's certainly possible I missaw it. I would imagine that if he did, we'll find out pretty sharpish, though.
Westvale Abbey also about to become a relevant thing. John made a token end of turn. Yeah, there's Declaration in Stone. So Nissa's going to come back. That plant is suddenly the 5th creature on John Stern's side of the board. Or does John want to go down?
Well, I think he's
top decked a Hangerback.
Yeah, he's found an even better creature to sacrifice if you want to make Ormondal.
Yeah, summons it first so that Nissa can pump everybody up.
Check out my team, says John Stern. May as well get a few hits in here. So 5 damage ultimately getting through there. And Oliver 2 on single digits. Conveniently enough for John Stern, single digits less than 10, meaning that Ormondal will be able to end this. And the control deck that Oliver 2 has doesn't have lots of ways of dealing with an indestructible creature.
Especially we just used this Dragonlord Silumgar. I mean, whatever. Ormondal's going to win it in one hit, so. Not a game where Silumgar's the answer.
So Oliver 2 here. He's in a game of Magic the Puzzling, trying to find a way of winning this game. Even on the board, he's facing lethal, and that's before you worry about the on-the-board Westvale Abbey to potentially make an indestructible creature. Based on what he's got in hand, can he get there? Is he going to have to crack that clue and hope to find something great? I mean, even cracking the clue, casting Languish, which normally would be the sort of thing that would be fantastic, right here, he's still going to have to worry about a whole bunch of Hangerback Walker tokens coming off it, Thopter tokens in the air. Not even a given that that would be enough, though it may be his best hope.
Now, the Silumgar's command can bounce Ormondal. Return target permanent to its owner's hand. But that's only if John actually goes in on it. I mean, what Oliver wants to do is somehow force John to go for the Ormondal plan where he can just completely blow him out with Silumgar's command. Right? How good would destroy a Planeswalker and return Ormondal to your hand be? It's kind of insane, right?
Yeah.
The problem is John doesn't need Ormondal to win this game. Oliver's at 8. And there's 11 power worth of attackers.
And that before Nissa has done anything at all. Yeah, not even a straightforward set of bluffs that Oliver 2 could set up to potentially change things here.
The best he can do is ship the turn back with Silumgar's command mana up and cross his fingers. And I mean, once John does commit to an attack, Silumgar's command should keep him alive for a turn. I mean, target creature gets -3/-3 is a thing. John goes down on Nissa. Is he going to wind up having to bounce 1, kill 1. Yeah, John's not going for Ormondal, of course.
I mean, even bounce 1, kill 1, I don't know if he's going to be good enough here.
Oh, yeah, you might be right. So Oliver just goes for the clue.
Has
Yep.
a dig, does
Can't
not
do it.
find what he needs, extends the hand, and John Stern of Canada will be our second finalist here at Grand Prix Toronto. John Stern there defeating Oliver 2, and he will be up against Robert Lombardi in the final. So he's already played against one control deck. He's going to have another control deck to worry about soon enough. I'm sure he'll also be making sure his D-sideboarding works out just fine, having seen how it worked out for Oliver 2 there. But we will be back very shortly with the finals here of Grand Prix Toronto. I've been Tim Willoughby along with Hall of Famer Randy Buehler. We'll see you very, very shortly.
Who will be the next Magic Online champion? Watch on May 13th through 15th as players including Sam Black, Mike Sigrist, and Jerry Thompson compete for the title. Watch live video coverage on twitch.tv/magic. Outfit your Magic collection with the newest Shadows over Innistrad accessories from Ultra Pro. You can see the full array of card sleeves, deck boxes, playmats, and portfolios of your favorite Magic artwork at ultrapro.com.